There are nights when the final score tells only part of the story, and there are moments when individual milestones intersect uncomfortably with collective frustration, and that was very much the case in Detroit as two parallel developments quietly reshaped the immediate conversation around the team without offering any easy conclusions. One involved a career number that has stood for decades, the other a personnel absence that will linger well beyond a single result, and together they frame where the Red Wings find themselves right now. The Detroit Red Wings are at a point in the season where every game carries weight, but not every storyline aligns neatly with the standings. Injuries are forcing internal adjustments, results have been uneven, and individual achievements are unfolding in less than ideal circumstances. That context matters here, because neither of these developments exists in isolation, and both emerged as the club continues to search for stability heading into a looming schedule break. The headline moment came from Patrick Kane, who added his name to the NHL record book by tying Mike Modano for the most points ever recorded by a United States-born player. Kane reached 1,374 points with a secondary assist late in a game Detroit ultimately lost 3-1 to the Los Angeles Kings at Little Caesars Arena. It was not a scripted moment, not a celebratory pause in play, but a functional contribution that came with the goalie pulled and the Red Wings trailing. That detail matters, because it shaped the tone afterward. Kane was direct in acknowledging that the loss overshadowed the milestone in real time, noting that little went right for Detroit on the night and that moving past the record would feel better if it came with a win. There was no attempt to elevate the moment beyond what it was, and that restraint is consistent with how Kane has approached his time in Detroit, focused on contribution rather than ceremony. From an organizational perspective, head coach Todd McLellan struck a similar balance. He acknowledged the disappointment in the result while also recognizing the significance of what Kane achieved, emphasizing that milestones of this magnitude tend to gain clarity with time. The loss will fade, the number will not, and the context in which it happened is unlikely to define how it is remembered. Now, before drawing any larger conclusions, it's important to look at the broader picture, because this individual milestone arrived at the same time Detroit is managing tangible roster challenges. If you follow this channel for well-sourced updates and responsible analysis, this is exactly where context matters more than reaction, and it's worth staying with the full picture as it develops. One of those challenges is the absence of Simon Edvinsson, who will be out through the Olympic break due to a lower body injury. McLellan confirmed that Edvinsson will not return before the pause in February, meaning Detroit will have to manage without one of its most relied-upon defensemen for several more weeks. The timing is significant, as the Red Wings close the pre-break schedule on the road and resume play later in the month. Edvinsson's importance is measurable. He has produced 17 points in 48 games and ranks second on the team in average ice time at over 22 minutes per night. Those minutes are not easily replaced, and while Detroit has already been forced to adjust for several games, the longer-term reality is that the burden shifts across the lineup. McLellan was clear that this is less about one player filling the gap and more about collective workload, execution, and game management. This is where the two stories connect. Kane's milestone highlights the value of experience and composure, especially in imperfect situations, while Edvinsson's absence underscores how thin margins can become when key contributors are unavailable. Detroit is not in a position to absorb losses lightly, whether they come on the scoreboard or on the injury report, and the coming stretch will test depth, discipline, and adaptability. In the short term, the focus remains straightforward. Kane sits 1 point away from standing alone atop a historic list, something that could happen any night. At the same time, Detroit must navigate games without Edvinsson, manage minutes carefully, and avoid compounding issues through structural mistakes. Nothing about this stretch guarantees momentum in either direction, and much remains open. From my perspective, this is a moment that reflects a team caught between appreciation and urgency. The Red Wings can acknowledge history without being distracted by it, and they can respect injuries without using them as explanation. How they respond over the next few games will say more than the circumstances surrounding either headline. I'm curious how you see it. Does Kane's milestone resonate differently given the team's current position, and how concerned are you about sustaining defensive structure without Edvinsson through the break? If you value calm, well-sourced coverage of these developments, I encourage you to subscribe, like the video, and share your perspective in the comments. The details matter, and this stretch will tell us plenty.